Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. It's a free online workshop for those who basically are looking to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all parts of the license application process and give you some practical tips to help you complete it correctly, and give you also some opportunity so how you can properly explain and demonstrate your experience on the application and your qualifications to get your license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating California's construction industry. I'm Justin Paddock, Licensing and Examination Chief at CSLB. Joining us is Fawad Gargazlu, who's also a licensing supervisor. Good morning.
Good morning. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note at the moment our CSLB test centers are open, and all applicants do need to wear masks on their test day, unless there's a different change by the local government agency. But at the moment, all 7 of our test center locations, you do have to wear a mask. That does change, so just keep checking our website because it gets updated each week. If you are watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to ask questions, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. And that is also where you can download the presentation you're watching right now and follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We're going to present a lot of information today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive the video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch it again. To ask questions on WebEx, use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can get for education or military service. Those questions are perfectly fine, but we're going to ask you to wait to send those until after we get to that part of the workshop. And we are going to go through all of the questions at the end of our presentation, which should be about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who's familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB publication. It's called California Contractors License Law and Reference Book, and you can download it free from CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher LexisNexis. And we also have some links at the bottom of the page of the screen.
All right, so we're going to cover a lot today. Here's the list. First, we're gonna walk you through the whole process again of applying for your license. First, who needs a license? Why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for. The types of businesses, entities, the different CSLB license classifications, including our very brand new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We'll cover fingerprint requirements for the criminal background check. We will help you get ready for your exam or exams that you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other thing you'll need to have in place, and finally, we're going to cover all the other things you need to have in place before your license is issued, like a bond and insurance.
Okay, now let's look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down the project to $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you cannot charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 more, you need a contractor license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition actually comes from the State's Business and Professions Code. In this case, the section 7026.1. And we also have a link here on the screen. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, propose to have the capacity to undertake, or submit a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part of. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if it totals more than $500.
So you may also be asking yourself, why should I get a license? There's actually a couple of good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get the license and you're serious about your career choice. Next, it allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and can't help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work you do. There is value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught in their first offensive sentence can be up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines on top of that, anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when there is one required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to getting a license, and also you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So let's see what you need to get your license. First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operation, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. And that's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid social security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number. It's called ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. One would be you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in the next few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications we receive and process every month, we don't have the staff time that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you apply for your license. Next, to get education credit, the course, to get education credit, the course must be directly related to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates you earn, or get official technical school or college transcripts. Have your transcripts mailed to you. Do not open the envelope. Leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB applications packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit toward your contractor's license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you will need to get your license first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. So if trying to use your education as part of your experience, pay attention to this part. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that some areas we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on the slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. So let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in Construction Management. That degree will get you full 36 months of credit. Next is Master's or Bachelor's degree in Business or Law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. Now on lesser degrees, an Associate Science degree in Construction Management will get you 18 months credit. An associate degree in majors beside construction will get you an average of 6 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 6 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker apprenticeship can get you 24 months credit for C20 HVAC or C43 sheet metal classification only. Or a lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We've included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo a criminal background check. We will go through that in more depth in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as the project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is the sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. The second entity is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licenses. Finally, an LLC or limited liability company, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of the California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the screen. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 130,000 of them. 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include the C10 Electrical Contractor, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C36 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61 D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is excited to announce our first new licensing classification in a decade. It's called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have a structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here is what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licenses also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicants' licensees must comply with CSLB experience, examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirement. CSLB is accepting applications for B2 license, and we are scheduling exam dates now. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are 2 forms you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is your bonus link on the left-hand side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME, responsible managing employee, as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they aren't willing or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Now, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options: application for original contractor license or application for original contractor license examination waiver, 7065. We have got a link to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is to determine your company name. Take a look at the application, for example. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company of John Smith. You cannot have a company of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed also on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main things to remember here is the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use the name in all advertising and on all of your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application must be expedited through our military application assistance program. We mentioned it a few minutes ago. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have an honorable discharge and be sure to include a copy of your military DD 214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer in all necessary fields. And second, do not forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of translators a little bit later.
Next, let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit the full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you're in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically, which called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county on the Attorney General website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to Attorney General website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you are out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 to 6 months for FBI and Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor, and also if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back 3 years from the application date to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information page at the bottom.
Okay. Along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which he or she is applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journey level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years, and use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you've performed them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall thing we will keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of descriptions. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, unacceptable would be something like residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out-of-state, military, or on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as journey person, foreperson, or supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and employment circumstances. Our next example is for C27 landscaping contractors. First, for the experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be: Jane performed landscaping construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways to tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For the C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like: Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, and concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. A good description would be: as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for supervising employee would also be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed for the general building contractor is required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of our applications. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event your application is selected and you would be asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if it's requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right hand of the screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see the first column is the documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you're self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you were applying for a Class B general building contractor license, and you need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you are trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience in the last 10 years. CSLB may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify your experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. I have got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check it to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand delivered to one of our public counters. We have got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
All right, now that we've gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you can see where the information goes. Section 1 is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification of the entity that you are applying for, and it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the California Secretary of State. In line 2, you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's websites once you are licensed. Next is section 2, and you will select your business entity. If you're applying for a corporation or LLC, you'll need to also provide your registration number provided by the California Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is the person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you were the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity that you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you are applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you will want to make sure all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are listed in this section. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes/no questions, so we are not going to cover those here. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts mailed to you, then include the sealed transcripts with your application packet. Do not have the program transcripts sent directly to CSLB. You don't want to take a chance that we were not able to match them up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated and evaluated by an accredited evaluation service that does business within the United States. Excuse me, sorry everyone. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information about your employer, where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line 2. If you are applying for a B general construction license, you'll be using experience obtained while working on your own property. Make sure you mark the box in line 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you are working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you are working part-time, you will receive 50% credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet the 4-year requirement. Hold on just a moment, everyone. I think I may have screwed something up here on the workshop. Let's just pause a moment. Kevin, is what I'm seeing isn't the slides? Is it? Sorry, everyone. It just looks like we're having a little technical issues. We'll be back up and running here in just a minute. So everyone, just in the interest of time, because I do want to make sure I get to your questions, I'm gonna keep going, but I think Kevin's working through it. Actually, it looks like he'll probably get the slide up here in just a second. But I'm just gonna keep going. I'm talking about the work certification. So actually, on part 2 of the work certification, so next slide, it needs to be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained your experience, and they must also select if you are working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you are working part-time, you will receive a 50% credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years within the past 10 years to meet the 4-year requirement. On line 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's description of classification booklet, available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next form we will discuss is the Owner-Builder General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Building Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line 6. On line 7, you will need to provide a scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Justin just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post a video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you got the application submitted. How do you check the status of the application? Here are 2 resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely receive your paperwork, it's likely that we are busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you're an applicant whose first language is not English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the exam questions. Question 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam to the test center with someone to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstances beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each study guide, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen.
Here is a quick look at two of those study exams. The first is the law and business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of bottom of these 2 slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open. We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test day. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam and give yourself extra time to get checked in. All applicants at the moment must wear a face mask or other face covering. This may change again and then will only require unvaccinated, but it keeps going back and forth, just so you're aware. Fully vaccinated individuals at this moment do have to wear a face mask. So just as a safe word of caution, I'd at least have one in your car when you're coming. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short what to expect on test day video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about the question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18 months period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
After you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay $200 for your initial license fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book examination. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds, depending on what type of business entity you have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you. especially in situations where you're going to solicit business, talk to a potential customer, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you are going to have salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, September 3, 2021, will expire on September 30th of 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of examples of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we have on file. If you're not at that address anymore, you're probably not going to get it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of your license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contractors on your behalf outside of your workplace of business. These people are called home improvement salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporations officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. A HIS, home improvements salesperson, can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license.
There are a couple of exceptions to note. First are those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered HIS, and bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you can call out for repairs, including for things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and a salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code sections of law. Okay, that is our presentation. Now it's certainly time to answer your questions. So we will start going through them. Fuad, I'll ask you, Fuad, can you think of a good example of an individual course and what kind of credit you would give it? Just one that you can remember recently?
Oh, the courses?
Yeah, just one course that you've approved recently, and how much time did you give them?
For example, management courses or
Sure.
law courses, business law.
What was one called? I just want to give somebody an example of what we typically do.
Business law.
Okay, and how much credit did you give for taking that course?
Well, that probably get them like a month or so.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Our next one, I have an EPA license. Oh, just jumped away. I have an EPA license and worked in the field for about 25 years in the refrigeration business. What needs to be done to receive a C38 license? So Fogg can probably answer part of this, but my response would be, we would need to see more specifics in your application. Because you're in the refrigeration business, that can mean a lot of things. If you were doing paperwork versus handling repairs. So we would just need more specifics. But what we would be looking for is servicing, repairing, installing, maintaining refrigeration devices. That's the kind of work we'd want to see on your certification experience. Anything you want to add, Fun?
No, that is correct. That's what we're looking at. Like as we said in the presentation, as long as we see 4 years of hands-on experience or supervising employee experience within last 10 years, that is the qualifying. But the trades have to match the classification that you're applying for.
Hold on, keeps jumping. The next one is, if a person qualifies a license and leaves the company, RMO, RME, they got the license for it, does the license number remain with the company or the individual? So if you're the qualifier, but someone else owns the business, that license number will stay with the business. That's pretty much it. So for example, if you were an officer of Construction Inc., when you left the company, the license number would stay with Construction Inc. Same with the responsible managing employee. Even a sole owner could have a managing employee, but even if that managing employee left, the number would stay with the sole owner. Actually, this is an interesting question that I think we're actually going to have to discuss among ourselves. The next question is, am I able to use owner-builder experience in completing the application for the new B2 residential remodeling license? It's a good question. I don't know why I haven't thought about it before. Fogg, have you gotten this one yet?
Yeah, we will look at that. But what we look at that for a B2 residential is actually if you sort of like as a self-employed, you building your own homes and to sell it. So if you just, for example, just had your home and lived there for 20 years and you got some work on it, that wouldn't count for it. But if you purchase homes, fix them, and then sell them, so you can show 3 or 4 of those projects in the last 10 years, then we can look at it.
Perfect. Next question, how does your fingerprint scan result get attached to the CSLB application? It works a little bit different. The way it works is after CSLB has done their initial review of your application, and I think we probably covered it later in the presentation, we use a term which is that we post your application. That's sort of the initial review is done. When that happens, CSLB staff will mail you a live scan packet. And if you're in the state, you would just use that packet, and you would go down to a live scan. I think a lot of FedExes, like your Kinkos out there, have those facilities at this point. You would give them the paperwork that's in that packet, and then they would run your prints right there. And then it's all electronic at that point. If you have questions about hard cards, I'll see if there's questions later, but hard cards are a little bit different. But that's sort of how it works. It's all electronic, the notifications we get. Fuad, is there anything you'd add?
No, just know that if you send in the hard cards, and you have to send the $49 fee for the DOJ to process that, and it takes, like we said, about a couple of months to get those results sometimes.
Got it. And this is a related question just about how do we ensure that the results get matched? Just so you're aware, part of that live scan packet will actually have your application identifier, which is called an application fee number, and that's how it will get matched up. And thankfully, it's all automatic at this point. The system, once we get notification from the California Department of Justice and the FBI, it just automatically updates your application right then and there. After you are given a date for your exam, can you take a walk-in exam prior to your set date? Yes, you could do that. I would just caution you, I don't, it's kind of like flying standby. So you just need to make sure that there's a seat available. But as long as you're close to a particular test center, you can certainly try it. Once you're in the system, we can pull your information and seat you as long as we have a seat available. Next question is, how do you get credit for a contractor that is signed off for you? I don't think I quite understand that question. I'm sorry. Fuad, do you know what they're asking? I may just ask the Kevin to rephrase.
Yeah, no, but if that means that, like if a contractor has signed your certification of work experience and they have, the good trade duties, we just look at the dates that they put on the certification of work experience and we give credit based on that.
All right, another interesting question. Will I qualify for owner builder experience credit if my father is the owner of the properties that I've worked and supervised on? It actually wouldn't work in that circumstance. But hopefully your father paid you and now you've got a customer that can supervise your work experience. Fuad, anything you'd add there?
No, that's it, because at that point you become sort of like a self-employed working for another owner builder. So that's how we look at it at that point.
Next one, I'm about to complete the 2-year electrical program at LATTC. I am also ready to, oh, it just disappeared. I am also ready to finish a 4-year apprenticeship with the, it keeps jumping, hold on, sorry. I'm also ready to finish a 4-year apprenticeship with the engineers union. Can I qualify for the C10 exam? I'd have to look up LATTC. I don't remember it, but you look like you're looking good, Alejandro. What I would do is you can, if you want to wait around till we're totally wrapped up, I can get into more specifics, but you're looking pretty good for that type. Fuad, do you know LATTC?
Again, I don't know what that LITTC program is, but this is as part of, if you're working there still as a trainee and you're not a journeyman, that is not the experience. So you can get some for your, for your education, but we still need some hands-on experience as a journey person. But I need more information on that LITTC program. But based on what I see, you still need some experience, hands-on journeyman experience outside of this.
So Alejandro, I would contact us after this and we can get into more specifics, and I'll make sure I have some contact information below. Can you repeat the answer to the education question? My audio wasn't working. So just in a nutshell, because I just asked Fuad to provide one example of education. Again, it's different amounts of credit based on what degree, if you have a degree you're trying to qualify for. And then it's also, if it's specific classes, it's very case by case. You can get up to 36 months, but we do caution you not to bank on that. So if you're trying to use education, make sure you're not squeaking up against that 4-year requirement. Anything to add, Fuad?
No, just remember, if you don't have a degree, those classes, they get you minimal, So don't count on, for example, if you don't have a degree to get like 2 years or 18 months, you get usually about 6 months of experience.
Yeah. Right. Next question, will my apprenticeship with the engineers union better qualify me for a C20 HVAC license? So Alejandro, every apprenticeship's a little bit different. It's one of those where we have to get into the specifics. There are some apprenticeships where quite a lot of it you would be a journeyman person, and there's other apprenticeships where none of it would qualify. So it really is case specific. We'd have to get more specifics on it. Next question is by Douglas. I want to start a pressure washer business, I believe that falls under the C61 sand and water blasting. Do I need experience to apply? Yes, you do need experience to apply. Any of our classifications would be 4 years, journey person or higher. I'm grabbing my classification booklet. Do you remember what would probably be best for this one, Todd?
The D38?
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Is C61 D38?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I just need to check. Sorry. See, FOD's better at this. Next question. If I am not able to use owner builder experience in completing the application for the new B2, should I apply for the traditional B? So again, I think FOD pretty much addressed that one, Walter. You can use the owner builder for the B2. And I think it's based on your situation. If you've got a lot of remodeling experience and that's really what you've been doing, then the B2 is the more sensible thing. If you're actually framing whole new additions to the house, a B2 is not going to help you. It's better for you to consider the B license, but it's going to be very specific to your situation. Anything you'd add, Fod?
No, but my recommendation is you can always, apply for a B, and then we will let you know that if that doesn't cover it, and then we may suggest you B2. Just apply, then we will work through that. But for a B, you have to have a structural experience.
Manuel wrote, is the license work in Texas like in Arizona? Manuel, I'm going to try to guess what you're asking. So the number one thing is, if you've been a contractor somewhere else in the country, we definitely want to hear about it. We're definitely going to consider it in your experience, regardless of where that was, or in another country, or somewhere else in the world. We do have reciprocity with certain states. Arizona is one where we have reciprocity, where you could waive. It's possible you could waive your trade exam, but it is specific to your situation. We do not have that type of waiver with the state of Texas. Next question. In terms of education credits, I have an associate's degree along with a Bachelor of Arts degree, but they were not construction related. Will these degrees add credit for my experience as an applicant? The answer, Kevin, is yes, it's likely to get credit, but until we see it, I can't tell you what that's going to be. Fod, would you add anything?
Yeah, one thing to know that it's not, we don't combine them. We give you the one that gets you the most. In this case, is the Bachelor of Arts degree, which if the degree shows on the transcripts, we can actually give you about 18 months of credit for that.
Next question is, any recommendations on good construction schooling education? Interested in being a general builder and contractor, and I live in the Bay Area. Eric, I will say I can't give you a recommendation on a school. I can give you some words of caution, and I would definitely make sure you check references. So I would, when you're evaluating, I would certainly contact more than one or two, and I can't give you a list of which those are, but I would at least contact two, if not more. And I would ask to talk to licensed contractors who were previous students, get some contact information so that you can actually get their opinion of how it went. My father is a 40-year retired general B contractor. He would tell you he felt like it cost a lot of money and he didn't need it. But I think everyone's experience is a little bit different. There are many people who are very happy to have that additional assistance, and there are others out there who felt it wasn't worth the money. But I would say that experience also varies with the company that you go with. So I think that's the real important thing. Remember that you're their customer, and you want to have a very positive experience. So I would definitely interview a few, not just go with the first one you find. Next question from JT. From a company formation, legal, and tax standpoint, what is the reason we see a very small percent of contractors being LLC versus being incorporated? That's actually a really good question. It's because you have to have additional insurance requirements to be an LLC. And so it's a little bit more of a cost because you're going to have additional insurance coverage. Anything you'd add, Bob?
No, that's the cost of insurance, the worker bond insurance, correct?
Alejandro, I'm not sure if we answered your previous questions, but I'm just going to keep scrolling through, and hopefully I'll get to it. If I didn't answer it, just ask it again. That's the same question. Besides the study guides linked in the presentation, are there any good exam preparatory courses you recommend? I pretty much touched on that already. One thing I do recommend though is taking a look at the study guide resources page. Those are all free websites. It's the second page of any study guide, and I do recommend you look at that before you start looking at preparatory courses. Also, a good rule of thumb that I try to give people for the law and business exam is the actual book that's in this presentation that's made by LexisNexis. The first 120 pages or so, that's a great test prep. If you really digest and understand those first 120 pages, which is us trying to explain the law in just common language instead of legalese, I think that'll get you a really good jump start on making sure you're ready for the law and business exam. Next question is, what is the CSLB category for computer hardware and software like point of sale equipment? I don't know what that's asking. Lynn, if you're asking whether or not you need to be licensed to work on IT systems, you actually don't, because that's not a structure. But I'm not sure if that's your question.
Just if they are going to actually, for example, install the network wiring inside the house and whatnot,
Right.
Those are the ones that falls under our jurisdiction. That would be C7 low voltage. But for computer hardware, software, point of sale, that is not under our jurisdiction.
This individual received a citation about 2 months ago for illegally advertising and contracting without a license. You absolutely can apply. Please disclose that in your application, but those type of citations, we actually expect you to contact us rather quickly so that we can get you in the pipeline. So again, I have to review all the criminal background there, but if you got that citation, that's not going to disqualify you, because then you just be in a vicious circle. So yes, definitely get your application in so we can start looking at it. Next question, I'm applying for a D28 license. I have 23 years experience. Can I provide more than one foreperson? Is it best to have just one? So Manuel, absolutely, you can provide as many forepersons as you've worked for. If you've got one that basically, for example, has worked with you, day in and day out for 5 years, then there wouldn't be a need for another. But it doesn't hurt to have more experience. It just means we're going to process it and keep moving on. Would you add anything, Fawn?
No, that's it. Got it.
The C32 license covers seal coat stripping in asphalt and concrete. I'm not sure that's a question. I don't have my book right in front of me. Any sort of classification question though, CSLB does have a classification deputy, and you can actually email them. It's classifications@cslb.ca.gov. And if you've got specific questions about what sort of classification you need for a certain job, that's what they're there for. If the owner builder experience on homes that I've sold is over 10 years ago, will I be eligible? So FOD is an owner builder eligible if their projects are more than 10 years old.
No, the statement is actually correct. No, we would not accept those. So you have to use the ones the current within the 10 years. So only use those projects that you done within last 10 years. And if that falls under B, then apply for a B.
Got it. The next question, how would I explain my experience if I have it from my current employer of over 10 years and my own business of 3 years? It's going to be a little bit specific to your situation. If you're working full-time for your employer doing construction work for the last 10 years, we're not going to give you more than 40 hours a week credit, even if you go home that night and you're working on your own business, from 6 to 9 at night, and then you go home. But if you're not working full-time for your employer, we could certainly talk about that. So that may be an instance where you have 2 different work certifications, one from your employer saying how many hours a week you worked, and then you would have a second from it because it's your own business. It would depend on who you've been working with, could be customers, etc., that would be certifying for your own business. Anything that you would add, Fawn?
No, the best is that submit one certification of work experience for each experience separately, so that way we'll make sure you have the 4 years covered.
Will 4 years experience as a journeyman engineer, not an electrician, be sufficient to qualify, or is this a case-by-case basis? So Alejandro, I'm wondering why you just don't want an A license. Instead, why you want a C10, but we'd have to actually look at what you were doing. And that's going to be incredibly specific to your particular situation. So we can't really pre-qualify that. Now, what I will say is we get applications where someone starts the process seeking to be, let's say, an A, and after we have a back and forth and get some more clarification, we actually say, this doesn't look like an A, it actually looks more like a C10, and we can change it in that process. But yeah, your situation, we're going to really have to evaluate specifically what's going on, and we'll have to do some research on our end when we receive your application. Fuad, anything you'd add?
Yeah, what I suggest, if one, submit your application, and if you need more information prior to that regarding what classifications actually best fits the trade you're performing, like Justin gave you the email, classifications, that's plural, at cslb.ca.gov. That's a good resource to get some of that information.
Next is Monica has experience with seal coat and stripping and plans to subcontract other work. Do I have to have experience in asphalt and concrete to get this license? So there are classifications that cover multiple types of work. So for example, landscape contractors, it can cover a lot of work, and a landscaper may specialize in a particular thing. So for example, you may be someone who's just a retaining wall expert, and that's all you do. That doesn't mean we're going to deny your license because you don't have experience doing anything other than that. That it's just we would want to look for 4 years of that consistent work that falls under whatever the particular classification is. Anything you'd add, Fawn?
No, you submit the application for C32. Go for it.
Is the exam pass, no pass, and is there a certain score you need to get in order to pass? Yes. If you pass, you'll never know what your score was. And on the study guide, it tells you what the pass is because it's a little bit different for every exam. If you fail, you'll get a printout of what your percentage was, what percentage was required to pass the exam. And the most important thing in your printouts would be a breakdown of the categories. So if we asked you 30, well, it would actually tell you, we asked you 30 questions on planning and estimating. You got 12 right and 18 wrong. That paper is very valuable because it'll help you know where you need to study for next time. So for example, you'll see some categories where maybe you only got one or two wrong, and other categories where you got like more than half wrong. That's the point of that piece of paper, and it's very valuable. And I really do recommend to people, you can reschedule your exam as close to 3 weeks away from failing. But if there's a lot to study, I highly recommend you take your time, kind of identify where those gaps were, study, and then get scheduled. You do have 18 months to pass it, but my advice is don't rush it. Don't just keep coming back and back to see if you can pull it off. Anything you'd add, Fog?
No, sir. That's good.
I need help to get me this experience. I have used my pressure washer several times before painting a house. Self-employed work. Some tips around that. So Douglas, it's going to be specific to your situation. I think if you're looking for experience, just like in any profession, it would be helpful to go find a licensee and you can actually work for them. If you want to go another route, you could partner with someone and they can be your qualifier for the next 4 years. Someone who's already licensed, you could go partner with them. Those are sort of the two best examples I have based on what I'm gathering from your situation. Fuad, anything you'd add?
No, that is correct. You know, if you don't think that you have the experience, you can always get a qualifier. And then once you work on that license, you will gain that experience you need. At some point, you can replace that qualifier and take over the license.
Can multiple experiences be combined for the certification of work experience for a C27, such as education, working for a licensed contractor, and self-employed? Absolutely. But the critical thing I'm pretty sure I'm going to channel FOD is make sure each of those is a separate work certification. Anything you'd add, FOD?
No, that's it. Separate work cert for self-employed and licensed contractor. You got it.
Next, I've been self-employed in the audiovisual field since 2007. I want to bid on audiovisual maintenance contract for 2022. It requires a C7 license. I also have past Navy schooling as an interior communications electrician. This is not for building, but maintenance and replacement if necessary. What do I need to take the C7 exam? So Bill, you basically you're going to apply, you're going to seek a C7, and you just want to make sure your work certifications show kind of what you've been doing, and we'll take it from there. And then once we've done the initial review of your application, that's when you actually take the C7 exam. Anything you'd add, Fawn?
No, just make sure your experience was that on the structures, then we will look at it. If not, yeah, there would be a problem if it's not on the structures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. Do I need to be licensed to work on fuel dispensers? My guess is you're going to need to ask our classification deputy. His name is Hal Clay, and he's got 30 years of files that go into specifics. I don't know that one offhand. Fod, do you happen to know?
For that kind of detail, it's best to communicate with the classification deputy, because that way you will have the response in the email, and formally you can have it in your hand too for future reference.
How do I get credit for my studies and experience acquired in another country? Because I'm an architect and I have tons of construction, building, and management experience, I'd like to become a B. So as we previously stated, your education certainly counts. If your transcript is in another language, please take a look at the presentation, because you're going to need someone to provide a translation of your transcript for us. And then just make sure your certifiers are certifying your experience. But whether you gain that experience in Spain or here, we just care that you have the experience. What would you have, Fod?
Yeah, as far as the transcripts from out of country, make sure they are translated and evaluated. There are accredited institutes that evaluate that, and they tell you what is that equivalent to the degrees we have here. And also, when it comes to the certification of work experience for out of country, we like to see someone actually from the out of country certified you. So go back, send it to them, have them completed, and send it back to you.
Bill was clarifying his last question. It's a maintenance contract for a building to maintain and operate and replace parts if necessary. He worked for an installation technician for a government contractor from 2000 to 2007, but that is too old, Bill, for us to evaluate. We actually need to see 4 years of experience in the last 10. Based on what you're saying and the fact that the contract is requiring you to get a license, I imagine a lot of your maintenance is going to be pulling out old Cat 6 and running new Cat 6, things of that nature. So you are going to need that experience. There's no way around that. Claude, is there anything you'd add?
Yeah, I think he's good for the, having another qualifier to qualify Bill's license, and then he can, after working 4 years under that, he can take over. That would be a good candidate for that option.
The next question is from Walter. Are you interested to know any other background information related to my background that may be insightful to you, but doesn't really have a place on the application? If so, should I provide a concise cover letter or just try to fit it into number 9, explain your past experience section? Walter, I think it depends. You can certainly provide us a cover letter. We'll certainly read it. If you have concerns about your work experience, that's probably, I'd probably want to talk more about it with you. But I'm not sure what the background would be related to unless it's your experience. Hopefully that helps. Is there anything you'd add, Fun?
All I can say is you don't really need to submit anything yet. Wait, once we get the results back, if we needed any kind of information, we reach out to you. That would be my suggestion.
Got it. Next, additional charges or fees when providing a bond as opposed to a cashier's check. There are no differences in the charges, but one thing I do want to really underline is I would really consider getting a bond as opposed to a cashier's check, because we're happy to accept either, but a lot of people who provide cashier's check, they get really upset when they're retiring and they want their cashier's check released, and we won't release it for 3 years after you retired, because we have to make sure the statute of limitations is passed on anyone who may want to file a complaint against you. And so after your license stops being active, you've got to wait 3 years before I'm going to release that cashier's check. Whereas your surety, you would just cancel your coverage for the future year. Anything you'd add, Fun?
No, thank you.
Besides the study guides linked in the presentation, are there any good exam? I think we've covered that question about exam prep. What form of payment is accepted for my application? Typically, we see a check. Yeah, we check. Anything you'd add, Fun?
Yeah, it's actually it says on the application too. You can see it says attach a money order or a personal, business, certified, or cashier's check made payable to the Register of Contractors.
It looks like we got to the end of the questions. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I'll wait just a minute to see if there's any additional questions. Fuad, is there any last notes you'd like to add for the group?
I really want to emphasize that before you submit your application, go through all the questions, everything, make sure is filled out, and there is signatures is there, the certification of work experience is signed and dated. We get many of application that it looks good, everything is ready to post and move forward, but like there is a signature is missing or date is missing, and those unfortunately we have to return it to you. So do your diligence, go over it again before you submit it.
Hold on, it looks like we got one more question. Oh, no, I think that's it. So I certainly appreciate everyone's time today. If you have other questions about your application, we encourage you to drop us an email to our licensing division. The email address is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. At some point, if you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. And you can download the presentation on a green banner at the top of our homepage, which is www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archive video of this workshop on your YouTube page, you'll definitely find a link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email to social@cslb.ca.gov. A special thanks to our licensing division and public affairs office for this help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractors State Licensing Board. Thank you everyone for watching.